Continuing with my trek across horror game history, it was obvious that at some point I'd have to face Amnesia: The Dark Descent. What can I say about this game that hasn't been said already? Every horror game aficionado knows exactly what it is. It set the formula for countless imitators to follow and attempt to replicate the success. It was the canvas for budding careers of YouTuber giants, and it seems like everyone holds it as some gold standard for the genre. I've already spoken out on the disappointing nature and simple mistakes of many horror games I've played, so I had to see how this fits the bill. What I found was less of a chilling and challenging experience, and more a puzzle game with haunted house intermissions. As I've said before, a good horror game must first be a good game. I started my original video on this genre with the question, why should I be scared? Amnesia: The Dark Descent doesn't have all that many mechanics to affect what happens in the game. There's a unique sanity mechanic, which I feel is actually one of the better and more unique parts of the game. Being in the darkness, witnessing paranormal events, and merely seeing enemies will drain your sanity meter, while completing puzzles and objectives replenishes it. In theory, this should make it feel like simply existing in and learning about this impossible castle is some kind of cognito hazard. It's quite Lovecraftian. In theory. In practice, why should I fear this meter depleting? Well, one problem is your vision becomes blurry. Cool touch, but barely an inconvenience. Camera movement will also become periodically sluggish and delayed. This is simply annoying. I don't feel like I should ever struggle with controlling my character in a video game. The final effect, which I only witnessed once in my whole playthrough, is that you sort of black out for like 10 seconds or so. Yeah. The only power this mechanic holds over you is in the mystery of what exactly will happen once your character reaches their limit. But I got over that fear fairly quickly into my playthrough, and realized that sanity drain is something to keep in mind, but not a big deal. I dare say the light mechanics are the only way you interact with the game world in an emergent and organic way. For one, you have a lantern, which is your only portable source of light. The lamp consumes oil, a finite and fairly scarce resource. That's why your supplementary method of avoiding sanity drain are tinderboxes. Those are far more common, and can be used to light up stationary candles or torches placed around the environment. I say the other mechanics are less emergent, because the puzzles you solve usually boil down to finding some items, and using them lets you obtain further key items until you progress. Finding the key items and figuring out where to use them, or what to combine them with, is the only intellectual challenge here, but it can also be easily brute forced by trial and error. Why are there puzzles to solve? Well, because without them, there just wouldn't be a game. As far as real physical corporeal threats go, the monsters are very basic and boring. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is remarkably sterile of threats in most areas. There really isn't much penalty to prancing about however you like, trying to solve the aforementioned puzzles, besides the negligible sanity drain, I suppose. There are enemies that appear, but in very scripted and artificial ways. Most of these encounters come soon after you've completed some objective. A monster might start banging on the door of the room you're in. So what are you gonna do? Hiding is your only option. Famously, the formula for most capital H horror games is that you're completely defenseless and vulnerable, which sounds like it should enhance the tension, but in practice, it means the enemies are blind idiots whose only purpose is to be a walking scarecrow. Not only do they appear out of thin air, but once you have outwitted them by hiding in a closet, they simply disappear equally suddenly. Where did that monster go? Am I meant to be fearing the monster or the level designer who created these scripted events? This is what I mean when I say it's a haunted house. It's a curated and linear experience where you always feel like you're in the safe hands of the level designer who cannot just unfairly bring death down upon you. And even if you do fuck up and the monster spots you, all that happens is you just respawn a few meters away. What's most hilarious about this interaction is the monster actually just disappears when that happens. You actually get rewarded for dying with an easier time. Are the monsters here to hurt me or send me to an easy mode? There's exceptions to this. In my entire playthrough, I ran into 3 situations where monsters were genuinely out on patrol and behaved like proper NPCs, and not just an intermittent visibility check. In this section, the enemy was walking around some patrol route, and I had to get past them somehow. I wasn't expecting it to go back whence it came, and it somehow didn't notice me hiding in this corner. Like I said, blind idiots. It's hard for me to take the AI as a serious threat after this. Another might be a bit charitable of me to include on this list, as it may have been a very simple scripted event, but also not necessarily. This monster was standing towards a narrow passage I had to go through, and I didn't know how to get past it. I was messing around and wanted to see what would happen when I threw a rock up this metal pipe. This made a loud sound and attracted the monster to this location, letting me circumvent it and progress. The third and last was just in this huge open arena with nowhere to hide and 0 directions as to where I should be going. It spotted me quickly, I ran for a surprisingly long time, before finally getting killed, and respawning to a monster-free zone. These were 3 genuine encounters across 5.3 hours of gameplay. I like how the studio made genuine strides in the right direction with Amnesia the Bunker. The monster in that game is genuinely hunting for you all the time. There's peaks and troughs of intensity, but the point is, your decisions matter. And that's the most terrifying thing a game can do to you. There's a few other things this game does to effectively ruin any tension that might have arisen. There is an aggro music that plays when enemies are aggroed onto you. But don't necessarily know where you are. It ends when the monster has evaporated. The music itself does make the moment more stressful, but the problem with this mechanism, along with the staple Amnesia vision distortion when seeing said enemies, is that it lets you know exactly what is happening. If the music is gone, you know for a fact it's safe to come out of your hiding place. It gives you too much certainty in areas where uncertainty would be far more terrifying. Another trope is how you will sometimes see enemies heading into areas you need to go to. In theory, I suppose this is meant to make you dread going to that location. However, my brother in Christ, this is Amnesia. That monster, it's not real. It will disappear the moment it turns a corner. It has to, in order for your goal to be achievable. I caught on to this fairly quickly, and the game effectively desensitized me to its only way of harming me. I actually played Slender the Arrival before this playthrough of Amnesia, and I found it does a similar mistake. In the prelude section before the 8 pages level, the Slender Man can be spotted blatantly staring at you from above on different locations around the valley. If you look at him for too long, he teleports away. I caught on fairly quickly that he will only relocate between 3 different predetermined spots and poses no danger whatsoever. If the goal was to completely desensitize me to this character before I've even reached the first major gameplay section, then this game passed with flying colors. If you're just gonna put him everywhere, it's not very impactful, is it? I feel like the drawings and events in the house do a good enough job at foreshadowing and instilling some dread in the player of the Slender Man, and the section that follows would have been a build-up of uncertainty and tension if you didn't see him at every turn. Why exactly did I even choose to play this game? Well, before I bought it, I told my friend this was the only other Amnesia game I could see myself playing, just because the atmosphere and story seem really interesting. And they were. There's something simultaneously dark and vibrant about Castle Brennenburg, as well as the backstory left behind in the notes you discover. It's not some sprawling and overly complex world full of pretentious proper nouns that give a mere illusion of depth. It's pretty succinct, and doesn't overstay its welcome, which feels pretty refreshing. We slowly learn of otherworldly artifacts, dark magics, and the evils behind the mysterious Baron, and your own character. The only real thing I would do to improve it is to give the story a bit of a paranormal or fantastical touch earlier than it is presently, as the introduction makes it seem like it's going to be more realistic and kind of just less interesting than it ends up being. Another observation I had is that the level designers could have really done a better job at making the castle feel like a real, lived-in location. Let's take the bunker from The Bunker as a counterexample. Almost every room feels like it's got a purpose, and isn't just a generic room to hold things within it. This is the mess hall with a huge table and a bunch of maps. This is the pantry with stores of food. This is the workshop with a bunch of tools and workspace. This is the barracks where soldiers sleep, etc. Many rooms in The Dark Descent just feel like a room. This one's got books in it. This one's got a desk. This one's got a cabinet. This one's got a bed. They're quite forgettable locations and don't feel distinct from one another. I feel like the level design of the castle could have been tighter and more compact, with some fat stripped out. Okay, look, I know what you're probably typing in the comments right now. The game is 15 years old by now, it was so influential and laid the groundwork for so many horror franchises, etc, etc. And I don't really have a retort to this beyond saying that Cry of Fear is 12 years old, and it was probably the most scary game I've played so far. Age in general hardly really matters to me when assessing a game. Graphics age, sound quality ages, game design does not. There's this little game, I don't know if you've heard of it, called chess, which is thousands of years old, and people still to this day dedicate entire lives to getting good at it. You know what's one of the scariest films I've watched? The Thing. This film is older than I am. On one hand, video games are a fairly nascent medium compared to other forms of entertainment, so I can understand people throwing shit at the wall to see what works. But I can only play games in the here and now. I can't go back to 2010 and play it then. I don't remember that year very well, but for what it's worth, I did look up gameplay videos for Amnesia, if only to see what the fuss was about, and honestly, even back then, I don't remember being impressed. So, how would I summarize my feelings on this game? Is it worth checking out? Yes. It's an interesting world, dripping with atmosphere, and it felt quite satisfying to be figuring out these little puzzles. But don't expect anything more than a fun little distraction. And certainly don't expect a pants-shittingly scary experience. The monsters are not much of a threat as long as you're not actively running around like a speedrunner, and even then the scripted paranormal events just feel like huge cliches in this day and age. Ooh, a door suddenly opened on its own. That's spoopy, right? Oh, and get this, your screen also warped for like half a second as it happened. Are you scared yet? Well, I'm not. Amnesia: The Bunker had a great reception overall, but suffered some criticism for being unlike previous Amnesia games. Well, I can now say in good conscience that it's for the better, because the original games fail at evoking any fear due to their simplicity and scripted nature. Thanks for watching.